There it goes.
Yep, we got it this time. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Game Masters Under Dark, where three game masters get together to answer your questions about running tabletop RPGs. By now, if you don't know, my name is Will. I am one of your GMs and kind of the moderator for the show. And I'm joined here by my two friends. Say hi, Max.
Wah wah.
Hi, Max.
That's me.
As you guys know, we're back to our regularly scheduled version of the show. We finished up last week with our world building episodes. So tonight we figured we would go over some session zero things. We talk about it a lot. We bring it up. I think we brought it up in every video we've done so far. So we kind of wanted to go over what it was if you're not sure. And the one thing that each of us thinks is like the most important aspect of a session zero. Before we do that, there's some housekeeping stuff. As always, we are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music. So if you prefer the audio only format, you can check us out there. Anything else? I don't think I have any other things before we get started, guys. You got anything?
Nope.
All right, cool. So session zero. You guys want to take that, what it is, or if not, I'll take it. Either one. You guys, yeah, I'll go for it.
Explain that for me.
So session zero, for those who don't know, is where you get together with your group, whoever's going to be playing, and discuss some important aspects of the game before you even start. A lot of times this is maybe the setting, character creation. That's also a good time to go over that. Some DMs are very particular about what you can and cannot use and which books are and are not available, depending on the campaign they want to run. So those are some things that you would go over in a session zero. Some other things that you could go over as well is excuse me, like some scheduling things and just some general expectations around like what your players are expecting of you as a DM, but what you as a DM expect of your players as well. So that's kind of a broad overview. We're going to go, like I said, one by one, just pick maybe the one thing that we always try to do, or at least we think is the most important part of a session zero. Which one of you guys wants to go first? Matt or Matt?
Matt, you can go first.
Okay. So definitely the thing that I try to establish first, especially if it's with a group of people that I have only played with a little bit or just starting to play with, is boundaries. I feel like are very important, where I've been in groups where boundaries were not established and people got offended at some things. Yelling matches for multiple hours have happened from some things. People crying, people getting up and leaving mid-session, like all of those nightmare scenario stories that you've read about online, like 90% of them I have been a part of that, because I have played with some very old school gamers, and the concept of the session zero is sort of a newer age thing that I've noticed, and definitely establishing boundaries I feel like has just really come into being very important, and a lot of tables are just now, just in the past 7-8 years, I would say, basically since 5th edition has come around and it's opened that up to a lot more people. That's been something that's very important, because now, especially with the pandemic that has happened and is still currently happening in America, at least, a lot of tables have moved online. So you're not always gaming with your buddies that you've known since high school or middle school. You're gaming with a lot more people in general now, because since 5th edition came out, I think, within the first 2 or 3 years, the amount of people that play D&D has doubled, just in like 2015 and 16 when that study was made. But more people means different sensibilities. So you really have to establish those boundaries of what makes people feel uncomfortable and not getting into those things that would make somebody feel uncomfortable, because that's not the point of the game. The point of the game is to have fun and to escape from those icky things that we deal with in, just being humans,
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say that part of that is on the DM to say, hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing. So that again, expectations are set for the players. But I think a lot of this is on the players as well up front. Whether you've played, like you said, for years or you're new, if I was watching a playthrough of Lost Mine of Fandelver, like from the starter kit, a great adventure to run, and one of the characters was playing a druid who had a dog as its companion, and said, I don't want the dog to die because they had a traumatic incident as a child losing a pet. And you don't have to get into the trauma or anything, but I think that was a great that example is a great one of up front. Look, I'm not saying the dog maybe can't be attacked. If it goes into combat, it happens, but the dog can't die. And that's setting those, like you said, that's setting a boundary. And I think sometimes players, when they're new, I think I know I wasn't this way at least, but you and I worked together for some time before that. But you as a new player, don't be afraid to set that expectation of your DM, and if they can't respect it, that's probably not the table for you.
Even if your DM tries to be like, but it's not dead, if it still happens to give you the feeling that it is, that's not good. That's not okay.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's that. I for those who again, if you're new, you might not know the channel, but Crit Crab on YouTube, great channel. I've watched a lot of his stuff since I've started DMing, and a lot of it's cringy. It's terrible stuff from DMs. But I recommend, if you're new, go watch that channel for what not to do. It's some of it is hard to sit through. I will say that it does sometimes touch on subjects that you like Matt said, like this is a fantasy game. There's some things that we just want to avoid when we're playing this, that we deal with in real life. And for better or worse, I hate to kind of single it out. I feel like this is especially true of female players. They deal with a lot more than men in a day-to-day life, women do. And unfortunately, there are DMs that think some of the things that happen are appropriate at a game table. Matt, I know you and I discussed that with the guy who ran a game for you guys with your older group. And I was like, yeah, I have a problem with that. And it didn't even involve me. I heard the story secondhand. So, I always feel empowered. I think that's the big thing. And if you have a DM that doesn't let you feel that way,
that's not the table to be at.
Yeah, you need to go. Because inclusion is huge. Which that's kind of the thing I may hit on depending on what Matt says. So Matt, any other thoughts before we move on to what your session 0 topic
Covered the big one for me, so I'm just going to talk about fun stuff now. So I love a session 0 because players will make a character. They'll make a character in their head. Maybe they haven't put it down on paper yet. Session 0 can help with that. You can talk them through the steps, especially if they haven't played before. You can I said the F word.
Now I gotta edit it out.
You are the only person that has cursed on this podcast. I've been trying my
Have I done it before? Have I done it before?
Yes, in your solo episode with Will, you cursed, and I was like, "We're allowed to do that?"
No,
I think we are. We should keep this in just as a conversation. But yes, you're right. I will tone it down. Next time I'll say Fritos or something. Anyways, point being said, I get passionate. I'm sorry. Okay. So where was I? People will come with their characters, come with an idea of their characters, and you can help them through their character sheet, and you can explain what wisdom and intelligence and what makes those different to those players that don't know. So this is a great place to explain those like more bigger ideas. That said, what I like to use session 0 for is to help that character after they've had their idea fit well into my world by asking like a few questions. I'll like if I'm making a game that's let me just grab a source of inspiration real quick. Okay, if I'm making a game that's in space, right? It's in space, and what do I need? What do I need from a player? What do I need from a player to make them fit well? What I would need is, why are you in space, dog? What are you up there for? And then they would be like, oh, okay, wait, maybe I thought a little bit, like I thought about where I was from, but like, yeah, why am I in space? And so they'll be like, oh, I'm mining rocks. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. That fits well into this little lore bit that I have here. Mines rocks, so you know this NP, this NPC, this people, maybe even know this other player character that buys rocks. I don't know, but but it's a cool way to like tie your players together, especially if they're all there in session 0. They can like kind of bounce ideas off each other and just it'll make your world feel alive, and the game hasn't even started yet.
Yeah, no, I like that, and I like this can be done online or in person now. Thanks to D&D Beyond, who we use religiously. Not a sponsor, but
hashtag not spawned.
yeah, hashtag not sponsored. But I know like the first time I sat down at a table with people I didn't know other than Matt as my DM, there were so many books flying around, and I was like, I don't know what to read.
Sorry.
But I'm saying like as a new player, that can be overwhelming. And as somebody who handles things like new situations well, I will admit I was overwhelmed. I'm like, there's a lot of books. I don't have any of these. Like I haven't read anything before I started. And so it can be overwhelming. And I think that's where we didn't have a session 0. We kind of just sat down, made characters, played. And I think I even told you afterwards, I was like, that was kind of weird. Like, I still don't understand. And I think that was more because I was the only new person to the group, and it maybe didn't just occur that needed to happen.
Yeah, and I think for session 0, making that time to explain how what do you call that, action economy works, like that would be where you would want it. That being said, I mean, I think for the most part, we all have learned like on the run while we're doing things. Yeah. And so like while you're playing, you'll pick up more intricate things that you can do in the game. And maybe the session 0 will be pretty much explaining what's on a character sheet and what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this is one reason why I love D&D Beyond is if you play digitally or if you play at a table with your friends, but they allow like tablets or cell phone use. I know some tables don't like they're here to play. They don't want any electronics. You can click on the different, intellect, and it tells you kind of what it is and how it's used. It kind of gives you a breakdown of those things. So if you're new, you can create a free account, go in there. There's literally an option to like create a randomly generated character. I would say do that and then start looking over the character sheet. And if you have questions, then you can bring that up to your DM in a session 0 as well. Like as a little bit of a get ahead. Like, hey man, I looked it over, but I'm not sure what this is. And again, hopefully you have a DM that's willing to answer those questions. If not the table for you. Your DM should be accommodating to that, to the nth degree. If you don't understand something, that is part of running a game is explaining it. And sometimes as a DM, even for people who know what's going on, setting limits. Again, I'm big, as you guys can tell, on the expectations because you guys know there are some people who have been playing a while and they're like, I want to do this. well, but I did this last time. Like they kind of build it up. And a session 0 is like, yes, that was last game, last campaign. We're not doing that this time. So,
Yeah,
you know, people who people who do know the system will sometimes try to take advantage of it. So, yeah, I like that though. You know, especially the character sheet thing. I know there's still times when I'm like, I don't know where this goes. Where do I find it? So,
you guys have I like this question here. Do you have any pet peeves when it comes to role playing games? Maybe session zeros or at least character creation.
ooh, pet peeves. Um, I don't know if it's a pet peeve, but for me, at least not again, not asking questions, like even character creation. There's a lot of cool stuff that you can do depending on the books that are available to you for a campaign. And if you're reading through something and you're like, oh, this seems cool, maybe that's something you want to do, but you don't ask questions because you're like, well, the DM's busy, or even another player's busy. I don't want to bother them. So I'm just not going to make that character. You know, there's some classes that are easier to play. I think by design in D&D, especially 5th edition, like a fighter, you know, it's made easy to play on purpose. But I played a necromancer my first game because why not? Like, and I asked a ton of questions. So I think if you're not willing to, like, not asking questions is going to prevent you from having fun, and that bothers me because I want everybody to have fun.
Mm-hmm. All I will say on that is it is obvious to me when somebody has very quickly Googled like most damage per turn build or something like that. And I have no problem with min-maxing. I'm a numbers guy. If you want to play a powerful character, go for it. I can throw bigger stuff at you. But if you come at me, if I'm like, hey, make like a 5th level character, and you're like 2 levels of this, 1 level of this, another level of that, and I'm like, cool, why does your character have all those levels? And you're like, because I want to do 87 damage a turn. That's what I have a problem with.
Yeah.
You're creating a character. Your character is the mechanics of how they influence the world around them, but also their thoughts, their feelings, their experiences, their emotions, what they like, dislike, all that. If you come to me with just a block full of numbers, that's not a character. That's something that is good and has a lot of pluses, but that's not a character. I want people to come to my game with a character, not a stat block.
No, I
get
like
that.
that. Yeah.
Mine kind of goes from that as well. And it's well, that's me, y'all. But
Matt is killing us tonight here.
whatever. It's a good episode.
Will's gonna have to learn how to edit just for you, Matt.
It's okay. New skill set. Anyways, my pet peeve is you've made a character. We've talked about your backstory. Then I always ask this question at the end of character creation when I'm aiding somebody. I'm just like, and what's your name? And people are like, ooh, I didn't think about that. And so I caught you off guard, something to think about. So you start to think about it and you're like, oh yeah, here's a name. And you give me a single name, just one name, like your seal. And I'm like, and you got a last name? And you go, oh, no. And I'm like, oh, why is that? And you're like, oh, because I'm an orphan. I'm like, okay, so is everybody else at this table. I mean, how many orphans do you think are in this town just trying to save it? Are all the orphans trying to save the village? I mean, if that's the game that y'all want to play, I just gotta write some lore in. But honestly, if I think making a character that's an orphan comes from this idea of like, I don't want to be emotionally manipulated. by my backstory, where like where the DM like takes my parents and has them kidnapped. And I mean, I get where you're coming from, but also, do you not want to save your parents? Like, wouldn't that be cool to play out? Or like, or again, maybe that's a boundary thing. You don't want that to happen, so just tell me. Tell me you don't want that to happen, and I can, as a decent DM that I am, will be like, don't worry, your parents will be fine. I'll just use them as like a fun NPC. They're just there. They're just there. And I've done that before. Yeah.
You arrive in town and you got a letter from your mom.
Yeah. If you have this fear of like, well, I don't want them to be in danger, I won't make them be in danger. I might make somebody else be in danger, but I won't make them be in danger. And so I think having a last name, that's my pet peeve. Pick a last name, have a family, build to that.
So I have a retort to a part of that, which is if you do read some of the books, some of the races do only go like by one name. So like in your cowboy game, my character is a changeling, and if you look in the book, they don't do last names.
See, that's a little different. I would say, yeah, if you bring that up to me and you're like, and that's why they don't have a last name. If you say that when I say, where's your last name? And then I'm like, point.
Right. But what I was going to say is like, but if you're playing like a human or an elf, don't make me think you don't have a last name.
And there's nothing.
Elves have last. Dwarves have definitely dwarves. Like,
right. And there's nothing wrong with not having a last name, and especially being an orphan. I just think that shouldn't be just like, oh yeah, and I'm an orphan. Put some thought into that. Like, maybe what was your earliest thoughts? You know, something like that. That'd be something to build off of, thinking that you're an orphan. Maybe do you even remember your family? That kind of thing. Any remnants of them? Like, build to that. So if anything, your DM can be like, heck, I'm going to help you find that family.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's a thing.
Yeah. And I would say, you can see my background. You guys know I use a tool out of this book in Xanathars. I talk about it a lot, probably annoying, but I'm an okay writer, but I definitely need like a kickstart. So if you're new and you're having trouble with the things like Matt was just talking about, in Xanathars, there's literally a section called This Is Your Life. And it has tables like one, if you don't know what you want to play, you just go roll, I don't remember, I think it's like a D10. It'll pick your class for you. You don't know what background you want, roll a die, it'll tell you your background. And then you can literally start at the top and it's like, do you know who your parents are? Now, obviously you can just pick yes or no, but I roll on that table every time and I've always gotten yes. Now, something may have happened to one parent or another. Like in our cowboy game, my mom disappeared. We don't know where she went. We don't know what happened. Poof, gone. But I told Matt my dad was arrested because they thought he killed her. I have like 9 younger siblings. Like that's all things for Matt to use, and that's all from the tables that I rolled on. I didn't come up with any of that. So if you're not sure, use the book, guys. Like Xanathars is great. I love it. It's the first book. I bought that before I bought the Player's Handbook. It's my favorite book. I like it. It's got a lot of cool stuff, especially for character creation and in the backstory aspect. So you use your resources. Tasha's got some cool stuff too, like with patrons, which I recently used with you guys. So use your resources, and if you're not sure, hopefully you have a DM that can guide you. We got about 6 minutes left here for this episode this week, so we're gonna go over my I guess my one thing for session 0, and for me it would definitely be I kind of have it written out in question form here, but what is it that your players want to do? Are you combat heavy? Are you role play? Do you want a classic old school dungeon crawl? Do you like puzzles? Because no matter what I have, and I think we talked about this I know we talked about this in our world building stuff, it doesn't matter if I want you guys to go on like a 20 level dungeon crawl, but you guys are like, no, I really don't want to do that. I want to run a tavern. all right, well, cool. Now I have to break out the Acquisitions Incorporated book and figure out how you guys can run a business on a, you know, as a campaign, which is why that book was created. Which I would really like to do that sometime, and I know Matt wants to. So
Not this one.
right. See, like
though I'll roll with it.
But see, like that right here is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. If I made an Acquisitions Incorporated game without asking you guys and then started playing it, one of you would love that game. You would be like, all right, cool, my guy's in charge. Here's what we're doing. Whereas, like you said, like, I'll roll with it, but you're not going to have fun. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'm a good enough player where I'll find a way. I'll find a way to make my chef cause some trouble.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, in general, that's not the game you want to play.
Yeah.
And I think that it's cool if you want to have a mission or two set up, or if you have even a setting like a city set up, you know what I mean? Like, you got to start somewhere. But the rest of it, I think that's, to me, what's important in session 0, because you don't want to get, 3, 4, 5, 6 sessions in, and all of a sudden what you thought was fun, like, you can tell when your players aren't having it. And that is, you never want to get that far. I think with both of the games I'm making now, and a lot of it's my own insecurities, I admit that, but I think almost every step of the way I've been like, are you guys cool with this? What do you guys think? Because ultimately, as much as I'm having fun researching for these 2 settings that I'm working on, it's your game. And if you don't like something about it, then why am I doing this? I'm wasting my time. So I think as a DM, session 0, find that out. And again, as players, I've said it a lot tonight, talk. Let them know. If the idea of just use pre-made adventures, the idea of Dungeon of the Mad Mage, that's 20 levels of nothing but a dungeon crawl. And each level is huge. If your players aren't into that, don't shoehorn it in there.
Yeah.
But if they like combat, you can find a way to make combat pretty much anywhere. Your house gets broken into, you got to fight off bandits. All right, cool. Like, there's your combat encounter for this for that session. Or you're walking down the street and some thugs are harassing an old lady. Things like that. Like, if that's what your group wants, is a lot of combat, that's the easiest thing to do in D&D. You can just you can make stuff up, point your finger in a book, and get an enemy. But if that's what your players want, do it. Like, just do it. And at the end of the day, they're gonna have fun. And if you're not having fun as a DM, I should say this. I know I'm putting a lot of it on the players, but if that's not the kind of game you want to run, maybe that's just not the group you need to run with as a DM. There's a group for everybody, and we're lucky. I would say that we have a group that we're very like-minded, so it's very easy for us to play together, to iron things out. If you didn't like something, we have no problem being like, hey man, maybe next time not so much that or this.
You're making them jealous, Will. Stop it.
Well,
it's hard out there to find a D&D party.
That's why I said we're lucky. We are lucky that we have this. But I think kind of like they say, there's a group for everybody, I feel like. And sometimes it is hard. But with things like Roll20, that's out there, and I know there's a few other sites, but it may take you a little while, but you will eventually find a group that wants
just keep on believing in your core spirit. You got this.
Yes.
This is my personal words to you.
Well, we're down to the last minute here. Any closing thoughts? Anything you guys wanted to add before we
this question right here is food welcome at the table?
Yes.
Yeah. We play virtually, but if anybody was to just randomly show up at my door with food, I would gladly take the food.
Which
I'm in my own house. There's nothing you can do to stop me from eating an entire rotisserie chicken. Okay.
Oh God.
They've seen me eat what's it called? Hot Pockets out of I should stop talking. I don't know, 'cause out of the pot. Hot Pockets out of the pot.
I was gonna say,
that's just because I live alone and I can do what I want. But
I mean, I've eaten noodles at like 10:30 when we've been playing. Like we
Yeah.
all have our thing.
Bring food. Sometimes it'll grant you inspiration, unheard of inspiration. Who knows?
Yeah, and I guess when I saw that one, just for everybody who's listening, there was like a list I found online. Which
My screen is like this big. I have it narrowed so I don't see the rest of the question.
But there are probably some tables, obviously, when you're playing in person, that they probably don't want food there, only because maybe they have like a nice expensive table, or they're just, I don't know. Look, it
Not
was
me.
all there. Yeah, I mean, we're even.
Yeah.
But
they got a nice expensive table, so they don't want to eat on it. What?
Hey, so I will say some of those tables they have for gaming, they are really nice.
Okay, you beat me there. Yeah, specifically gaming tables. Maybe don't put your drink on it.
Yeah. Like, some of those are really nice, and I would not want marinara from your cheesesteak. Oh my! I almost said it.
Marinara all over my face. I'm like, I'm sorry, Will. I'll clean it up. And you're like, fucking clean your hands, Matt. Clean your marinara hands. Your dirty, filthy mouth marinara hands.
You know, I wasn't writing down timestamps for this. There's a lot of work.
We should come up with like a sound blip.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to now.
It's just all of us saying bad word.
There we go. Well, we'll work on that.
I talk way more in real life than I do on here, and that's because I'm constantly thinking whatever you do, don't curse. Right? So that's why I'm so quiet.
Exactly. Well, that's kind of... Well, on that note, that is the end of this week's episode, everybody. We hope you enjoyed. I think you can tell we're kind of hitting our stride a little more. We're a lot more relaxed this week, Matt.
Super relaxed. I'm feeling it, guys. I'm really feeling it. This is a good episode.
It is. I enjoyed it. As always, guys, if you enjoyed the show, like, comment, subscribe. If you like I said, looking for the audio format, just subscribe to us on your podcast solution of choice. And if you guys are looking to support us further, we do have a Patreon. We have a couple things up there right now, so any help would be appreciated. We're all looking to get like better cameras, better microphones, better quality content for you guys out there. So
in my case, a better internet connection.
Right. But with that being said, everybody, we hope you enjoyed everything, and we'll talk to you next week. Happy gaming. See ya.
Adios.
Bye, guys.